What's up guys, my name is Ace, and now that we've got a few days of playtime with the beta, and I've managed to really get a feel for a lot of the things in the game, I feel it's time for me to share some feedback and criticism in relation to the perk system. Now, I didn't want to have a knee-jerk reaction to this, that's why I've waited a few days to make sure that I gave the perk system an honest shot. But now that I played with it for a while, I've got to say, I really don't like the direction they're going with this perk system, and I think there are some very serious and obvious flaws with this system as well. So that's what we're going to be talking about in today's video, but before we do that, I think it's important to share exactly how this perk system works, because I know a lot of people are still not quite sure how this works, and I've also seen quite a few misconceptions, especially about the timing of these perks. So let's get into the basics here, and we'll start this off with our three different tiers of perks, or three different slots of perks. First up, we have our basic perks, which are all of these perks here, and you get to select 2 of these, and these will be active the moment you spawn into the game, just like we would normally expect with perks in Call of Duty. Then we have our second perk category, which is called the bonus perk, and that's any one of these perks that you see here, and with this one you earn it throughout the match. Now this is time-based as well as score-based, and the way this works is if you get 0 score, no kills, no nothing, it will take you 4 minutes to charge this up. However, for every 10 score that you earn in the game, it will reduce the timer by 1 second. And that does add up pretty quickly because like it's 100 score for a kill, for instance, and therefore every kill will cut that down by 10 seconds. But just to see what this would look like in a normal game, at least for me, I went through 5 different games and found out how long into the match it took me to earn this bonus perk. And on average, I was earning this roughly 2 to 3 minutes into the match. Now, 2 minutes was when I was performing quite well at the beginning of the match, and 3 minutes is when things were going a little bit more slow, and I wasn't really getting a bunch of kills or anything early on. So that's the bonus perk, and then finally we have our ultimate perk, which is the same sort of thing, except instead of 4 minutes into the game without earning any score, it's now 8 minutes into the game without earning score. But again, it's the same thing. Every 10 score, it'll cut that down by 1 second. And once again, I went back and looked at my real matches, and on average, I was earning this roughly 4 to 5 minutes into a game. Again, that does depend on your performance. 4 minutes is going to be when you're performing well, 5 minutes, not so much. But what this means is in a 10-minute game of Call of Duty, we're going to have access to our bonus perk for about 70 to 80% of the match. Whereas with our ultimate perk, we'll have that available for roughly 50 to 60% of our match. Which, to be fair, that's not quite as bad as I initially thought it was. Early on, I was thinking I was earning these perks much later on, and that just wasn't the case. But there's also one big important thing that a lot of people have had questions about and jumped to some conclusions about as well, and this is what happens if you join into a match late. Do you start from scratch? Are you going to be way behind all the people that already have their perks charged up? Well, it turns out the game takes the current time in the match when you join, and it will cut that amount of time off of your charge rate. However, it only cuts that time off. It doesn't factor in any score that you would have gotten if you joined in the beginning of the match. So while it's maybe not quite as bad as a lot of people thought, it's still going to be putting you at a disadvantage by joining late, because right here is a perfect example. I joined almost exactly 2 minutes late into the game, which means they did shave the 2 minutes off of my charge time for my bonus perk. However, for people that have been playing since the beginning of the game, they likely already have that perk charged up, or they're at least right on the verge of that, whereas I've still got a little bit to go to catch up to them, and therefore I'm immediately at a disadvantage in the game simply because I joined the game late through absolutely no fault of my own. And that right there is obviously a flaw with this system. You shouldn't be punished just because you happen to get thrown into a game late, and you technically are with this system. You're going to have to be playing catch-up at that point. Now, that's not the only flaw with this style of a system. Now let's start getting into more of the constructive feedback and criticism that I have in regards to this perk system. And one of the biggest flaws here is it seems to directly contradict a lot of what they've been saying while marketing this game, and that is they were trying to cater to all playstyles, and this perk system severely limits the playstyle variety, at least for a good chunk of the match, every single game that you play. The best example here is taking a look at the Ghost perk. The Ghost perk is a necessary part of the stealthy playstyle, whether that's a stealthy flanking playstyle or even a stealthy defensive playstyle. There are different ways that you can use that Ghost perk to your advantage, but the fact is, to have that stealthy playstyle where you're staying off the radar and being hidden from enemy players, it all hinges on having that Ghost perk available. And with this system, we only gain access to that playstyle for about half of our matches. So this system artificially holds back your playstyle until you're able to earn these perks, which is far more limiting to playstyle variety than any other Call of Duty game where you select your perks and you just get them the moment you spawn in. So with all this talk about encouraging all playstyles and having more playstyle variety, this perk system completely contradicts that statement. Additionally, another big problem here that I can point out, just looking at the Ghost perk as well here, with it being an ultimate perk that you only get for roughly half of your match, I feel this perk system is leading to a lot more snowballing in-game, where when one team starts to gain some momentum and an initial advantage, it's just compounded even more with this system, because with the way things are working right now in the beta, the first team to earn a UAV is going to have a significant advantage over the other team that doesn't have UAV, because there is no counter to that, aside from earning a counter UAV, but then again, you would have earned a UAV at that point, so that doesn't really work. And then also, of course, you could shoot that UAV down, but by the time you shoot it down, they've already got a couple pings and likely already stacked a bunch of kills, leading to more UAVs on their team and making it more difficult for your teammates to stay alive to earn their UAVs. And I think you can probably piece together the snowball issue there. Previously, we had a direct counter to those UAVs with the Ghost perk. If you were on that losing side and things weren't going your way and the enemy started spamming UAVs, you swap to a class setup that has the Ghost perk on it, or swap your perks to put the Ghost perk on there, and you're good to go. You've now countered that thing that they're doing, while also sacrificing that perk slot for yourself, so you're losing out in some other areas, and that was balanced perfectly fine in my opinion. I don't see any issue with that. Whereas with this new system, I'm immediately seeing a bunch of flaws with it. And to me, this is just an obvious case of trying to fix something and innovate with something that was never broken and never a problem to begin with. Now, I'm not saying there weren't perk balancing issues in the past where maybe they didn't have perks balanced in the right tier or against each other, or some of the values could have been tweaked with the perks. I'm just saying the structure of the perks and the fact that we didn't have to charge them up throughout a match in order to essentially unlock our playstyle or unlock our counter to what the enemy is doing, that was simply a far superior system, and I feel like they completely broke that for the sake of saying they innovated in some area and changed something up. And don't get me wrong, I'm all for well thought out innovation that improves on something that was lacking, but in this area, I don't see this as an improvement. I see this as a downgrade that limits playstyle variety, leads to much more snowballing in matches, which I think is going to lead to a lot more frustration. And I truly feel if they just eliminated these charge up times, kept the perks the way they are, maybe made some perk balancing changes, of course, like we would see with any Call of Duty game, especially in the beta, maybe rearrange some perks or adjust how they work slightly, I think that would be a far superior system, and it really seems I'm not alone with this. I've been monitoring a lot of the feedback in the community, and the response to this perk system has been pretty overwhelmingly negative, and I've seen basically nobody praising or supporting this perk charge up system. So I really hope Infinity Ward considers at least making some adjustments. And speaking of adjustments, perhaps there's even a compromise that could be made here, because they probably had somebody working hard creating this charge up system, and maybe they don't want to throw the whole thing out. So one idea I had is essentially incorporate pro perks into the system like this, where you still choose your 4 perks just as they are. However, with your bonus perk and ultimate perk, you get the base version of that perk immediately. You spawn in that right at the beginning, just like your basic perks. And then throughout a match, you charge up the pro version of that, which gives you a little bonus on top of the base version of that perk. And they could use the exact same charge up system, same timings, everything like that. And just an example with the Ghost perk, since we've been talking about that one a lot, for instance, maybe they could have the base version of the Ghost perk only work while moving, and then once your ultimate charges up, now it unlocks Ghost Pro, which is the always-on version of this, where even if you're sitting in a corner, you stand off the radar. And as much as I'm not a big fan of that style of Ghost, I could live with it a lot more if it's something where that was the pro version of the perk that they charged up over time. I think that would also significantly cut down on that snowballing issue, because if people are calling in UAVs, you throw that Ghost perk on and you just have to stay moving, and you're now able to counter those UAVs immediately when you get into the match, if you choose to use your perk slot for that and sacrifice other perk slots to gain that power. And just for a couple other examples, since we've been picking on Ghosts, with Fast Hands, you could make it so the base version allows you to reload faster, and then the pro version allows you to use equipment and swap weapons faster. With Cold-Blooded, you could make it so you're undetectable by the AI targeting systems as the base version of the perk, and when you charge it up, now you also gain the power to not be highlighted in red for player-controlled items and kill streaks. Or with Spotter, for instance, the base version could allow you to spot enemy equipment, field upgrades, and kill streaks through walls, but you don't gain the power to mark those for your teammates by aiming at them until you unlock the pro version of Spotter. There are so many different ways they can handle base versus pro perks in this game, and I'm really hoping Infinity Ward is open to making some adjustments in this area, because if they don't, I feel like this is going to be that one big thing we always look back on with this game and think, what were they thinking? This game could have been so much better if we just had a normal perk system, or if they at least made some compromises and met us in the middle. And I do say us here, and the reason behind that is I feel like this particular system isn't one of those things where it's strictly benefiting lower skilled, more casual players, or the higher skilled players that want the highest skill gap possible. I feel like this is more of a change that would just benefit the game in general and improve playstyle variety and give people the tools that they want to support their chosen playstyle, whatever that playstyle is, whether that's camping in a corner or rushing aggressively. I feel like a change to this perk system would benefit the game in general and not just one group in the game. Now, of course, these are my opinions and the feedback that I'm providing, as well as a potential compromise with this system. And this is where I want to hear from you guys in those comments down below. First up, what are you guys thinking about this system in general, where you have to charge up certain perks? You don't get them throughout the entire match. You have to sort of earn them in a match or charge them up. And second, what do you guys think about the compromise that I suggested, where maybe you have a base version of the perk and a pro version of the perk, where you get the base immediately and all game long, whereas the pro version you do charge up over time? Do you think that would be a good and fair compromise? Or would you prefer if they just scrap this system entirely? Or maybe are you one of the ones that thinks this perk system's great and you'd like to keep it around? Just let me know all of those thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.